Hi, and welcome to another episode of Words That Inspire. As always, my goal is to motivate, to inspire, to encourage, and to uplift you. I hope that each and every one of you are safe and sound wherever you are, that this raging virus has not affected you, has not come near your family, that there is no violence that has affected you. As always, I am praying that God keeps you and God protects you. In the last episode, we talked about finding peace in troubled times, essentially how to navigate within a storm and still be at peace. And in this episode, we are continuing with part three of a series we started last year, Keeping Your Head Raised. The goal of the series was to teach us about not allowing our troubles to make our head bow, not allowing our troubles to weigh us down to the point that we cannot keep our head lifted. And in this third part, I have invited an awesome guest to help us talk about pressure, specifically external pressure. And we want to talk about peer pressure. It is a thing. And we want to talk about how to ensure that it does not affect us and that we do not allow external pressure from others to derail our purpose. My guest today is a very good friend of mine. His name is Seyi Alabi, Mr. Seyi Alabi. He's a husband to a beautiful, beautiful wife. He's the father to an adorable little boy. I adore his son. He's a member of the U.S. Armed Forces. He's a local fashion icon. And he's also a very well grounded person. We worship in the same church and we serve together in the usher department. I have had many conversations with him, and I always live with a lesson learned and a word that encourages me and that enriches me in some way. So when I thought of a guest for the third installment of this series, it came to mind, and I am greatly looking forward to his insight and trust that everyone who listens will be blessed. So, Rashi, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Wow, that introduction was powerful. Thank God for that.
Okay, so let's dive right in. So what do you understand to be peer pressure?
Well, peer pressure to me is a feeling that must do the same thing as others, among your peer, among your social group, or among your colleague. It's like a sense of belonging, just to feel that you're part of a body. That's what peer pressure is to me. Like you want to live up to standard, not necessarily the kind of standard that you want for yourself, but
Mm,
for others just to feel, you know, part of a group, if you understand what I mean. So
yeah.
that's what peer pressure means to me.
And so based on your definition, peer pressure is something that comes from inside out, is based on how you're feeling and not necessarily something others tell
Yes,
you. Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. See, it's like you putting a pressure on yourself
Mhm,
just for you to feel that, like you just want to be accepted
mhm,
by your peer, your group, your colleague, your mates, whatever, a group of people you interact or you roll with, or your colleagues. So you put in this so-called pressure just to meet up with their own standard. So yeah, so peer pressure is something that is within. Sometimes in my, in a little way that I actually did like a research, we have about six levels of peer pressure.
mhm.
We have like the spoken peer pressure, unspoken. We have direct, indirect, negative, and positive. So pretty much during this conversation, we'll be talking more about the five, not necessarily with the positive. But keep in mind, I'm going to touch a little on the positive because sometimes the positive might end up being negative if you
Mm,
don't apply God's given wisdom to
mm.
the positive peer pressure. So
Okay. So before we dive into the different types of peer pressure, I just to want you to address whether it's real. Is peer pressure real? And I ask this question because I've heard a lot of people when I was growing up.
Mhm,
I heard a lot of adults say peer pressure is not a thing. You
mhm,
know, where I remember something happened when I was in boarding school.
mhm,
To fit in, a girl did something really stupid, and unfortunately, the negative consequences of that, she was the only one that suffered it.
mhm.
And so, when I was telling my aunt the story of what happened, I said, she kind of got pressured into doing it because of her friends.
Yeah.
And they said that's not a real thing. A friend cannot pressure you to do something. And I've heard a pastor say, "Oh, if your friends pressure you to do something, just say no. It is as easy as that." And I don't think it is, but
Mm.
I just wanted to get your viewpoint on that, whether it's a real thing.
If anybody tells you there's no peer pressure, um, I don't know how they were able to deal with pressure in life, growing up. But I can tell you, I was saying, I said, peer pressure is real. Some people, it might be easy for someone to say, oh, you can just say no. But that's not the case for a whole lot of people. If I'm correct, maybe out of 100 people, I would say maybe about only two people can just say outright no. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But 90, what about the other 98 people? You know what I mean? So peer pressure is real, because like I said earlier, especially in the life of the adolescent, like the teens, youths,
mhm,
teenagers, because if someone has like a low self-esteem, or sense of I want to be part of this group, you feel like this group is so flashy, like this is what the group I kind of willing and longing to belong. They can pressurize you to do things out of God's will or out of things that you would normally do. So yeah, peer pressure is real as a daylight.
yeah, it's real, and it sounds like the need to belong
Hmm.
drives how we react to external pressure or to peer pressure. I think it's something that everybody feels. Everybody's pressured in one way or the other. The most important thing
Absolutely.
is how we react to it,
Hmm.
and the how strong the need to belong to a particular group is.
Yeah,
Determines how we react to peer pressure. So,
absolutely.
you mentioned the different types of peer pressure, which actually is linked to my next question. Because my next question is peer pressure direct? Does it only exist when someone explicitly tells you or verbally tries to convince you to do something?
Yeah, like I said earlier, we have about six types of peer pressure.
Mm,
We have the spoken pressure, and I will use myself as an illustration on the spoken peer pressure. When I was in high school, then our assistant senior prefect, that's you would call assistant head boy,
mhm,
was my cousin, and he was like three classes above of me. So my like two of my friends, I wouldn't say friends, but my colleagues in class came to me. They said, "Oh, you are a snitch. You always snitch on boys and stuff like that." I was like, "What are you guys talking about? I've never been a snitch. Why do I want to snitch on anybody? I'm just here to study and live my life as a normal young boy."
mhm.
So they verbally pressurized me to join them to do some of the things they normally indulge, just to prove that you know
Oh,
I'm not a snitch, or I'm not gonna tell on them. We call it spy then in high school. That I'm not a spy. But unfortunately for me, just to get them off my back, I actually joined them
mhm,
to indulge in those activities. So that's for spoken pressure. Later on, I'll probably dig deep into how the story ended for me. So
mhm,
the second one is on the unspoken pressure. That one is more of like an atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like when you come around, like you feel like this set of people, they're supposed to be a friend or your friend or whatever. But when you come around their continent, the atmosphere, everything change. It's like they don't want you around them. You know what I mean? So deep down inside of you, looking at what did I do wrong? How do I get these people to like me? And that goes along with like low self-esteem on the unspoken peer pressure. The direct pressure is similar to the spoken pressure. Like when you're directed to do something, they're trying to like loyalty, put it like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Prove your
Like loyalty.
loyalty.
Yeah, you prove it to us, so they can direct you to do something. And the indirect is somehow like spoken, but indirect they will kind of give you an instant of things that they've done. They're not like directly telling you to do it. You know what I mean? Like you can be like, oh yeah, that's a piece of cake. If that's all it takes for me to be, to feel welcome among you guys. They're not telling you to do it, but indirectly they're telling you like, oh, we've done this, we've done this, we've done that. But you want to prove that, oh yeah, you can live up to the standard. Now, yeah, you jump into it by like this so-called indirect peer pressure, and you do what you're not supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the above all, everything ends up with negative peer pressure. I'll give a story about a young boy that I read in the news here in the United States like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
This 14-year-old kid, I think, I don't know much about his background. Maybe, there was no father figure or whatever, but he was pressurized to go steal, to pickpocket. A 14-year-old kid. Unfortunately for him, he got caught. If you look at this, when I saw the guy's picture, if you look at him, he looks pretty much like a 10-year-old kid, but he's 14 years old. They put him in a jumpsuit, like prisoners wear, while the judge sentenced this kid as an adult. I think the judge gave him 40 years
Oh my.
for pickpocket. So now, how did I hear about the story? Some human rights activists, they put it on news. They're trying to compare, things that's going on that affecting, some race and all that. I'm not really going to go deep into that. But look at that kind of negative peer pressure. A one-time thing. He has never done anything before in his life. He just want a sense of belonging to a group, and he got caught. Now, let's assume that, they reduced the sentence to whatever, 10, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's most of his youthful life wasted in jail. So we really need to be careful when we've been being pressured by people to do something. We really need to be careful. So for the positive one, that can be a good thing, like if you're trying to pressurize me to do better as a person, which is really good. But sometimes that pressure, is this something that I really want for me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For an example, if I have a couple of friends like they're like event planner, and I see they're doing extremely well, doing their thing, and they're trying to pressurize me like, dude, you can do it. Yeah, I've seen you move around, things like that. I was like, okay, what if that's not God's plan for my life? You know what I mean? I can indulge in that because it's positive. It's working for them. Don't Not necessarily it's gonna work for me. And that will bring me to another quick story. I heard this when I was a little boy. I don't know, I'm not sure about the authenticity, but I heard this when I was growing up that this guy, his parents pressurized him to be a doctor. Okay, so he finished the school, became a doctor practicing. He had his own what's it called? His own place, like his own medical
His own
facility.
practice.
Yeah, exactly. His own medical facility practice and all that. But he just realized that things are not just moving the way it should. It feels that I'm not having these clients. I have few clients. I'm always behind my bills and all that. So he approached his pastor. You know, they went on fasting and prayer and all that. So God revealed to him that that's not his field. That's not his line. That he's supposed to be a butcher, like selling meat. Can you imagine from being a medical doctor and selling meat, in the market? this, according to the story, said they said this man laughed and he just looked at the pastor like, "You must be out of your mind." A medical doctor, what would my colleagues say of me? You know what I
Yeah.
mean. He's not
Yeah.
even thinking about himself and what God asked for him. He's thinking about his colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
That what would they, how would they look at me like once a doctor now selling, meat in the market. Cut the story short, it went on and on for years. He realized that nothing was moving.
Mm-hmm.
So he went back to the pastors and they started the procedure. According to the story, then they said this guy probably owned maybe like 40 to 45% of meat market in the old Lagos state back in the days.
Mm-hmm.
God really blessed him in a way that the medical line could ever give him in couple of decades. God bless him so fast that so the positive pressure, if it aligns with God's plan for your life,
Mm-hmm.
that's good. But so we need to be careful about the positive pressure. So those are the types of peer pressure we have.
So essentially, pressure can take you off course
Yes.
from your purpose or whatever it is you need to be doing.
Yes.
It took me time to learn this,
Hmm.
but um, friends who want to be your friends when you are different from them are not your friends.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
I remember being in undergrad and studying. It's not that people didn't study, but just to me, it was if I had spare time in between classes, that was all I did. And after school, I think I had 2 or 3 part-time jobs after school.
Hmm.
So it was just school work home. And it, I found a community of Nigerian students at school, and it was fun hanging out with them.
Hmm.
But after a while, it was like, well, if it was never something that was explicitly said, so I guess that's unspoken or indirect. But oh, if you want to be part of the international students group, we have a party here, we
Hmm.
have a party there, and I have nothing against parties and gatherings. Just it wasn't my thing. I already knew it
Hmm.
wasn't a
Yeah.
situation I was comfortable with. But I
Yeah.
can understand how, like when you were saying unspoken peer pressure, it's kind of like the atmosphere environment.
Yes.
Like they would gather, one would gather sometimes to discuss.
Hmm.
It was almost as if I was a stranger listening in because
Exactly.
as soon as I walked in, the atmosphere would change. Like they're speaking in code,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's made me uncomfortable. And somebody
Absolutely.
told me once, well, if you want to join in the conversation, come hang out with us on Friday night.
Hmm.
It was almost as if the prerequisite to my being included in the group was going to whatever events they had for the weekend.
Absolutely.
So at the time it hurt, but thankfully I was too busy to care that much. But looking back at it, if a
Hmm.
friend cannot appreciate, if you have a friend who is an extrovert and you're an introvert and they cannot appreciate you for you, that person is not a friend. They're just, somebody you're hanging out with. And to anyone who is listening, it's really important to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
That a friend who, instead of appreciating you the way you are, is trying to
Hmm.
influence you to be more like them, is
Hmm.
not a friend. Anybody who likes you or who loves you should appreciate you as you are. And should not need to, if somebody is telling you to do something and you feel uncomfortable and you feel as if you're being harassed, that is prayer. Because sometimes I think, and tell me if you think this is accurate, we do not, sometimes we don't recognize, especially when we are close to people, we don't recognize when we are being pressured into things.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
because sometimes it comes like advice from a friend.
Yeah.
But when you're telling me 10, 20 times, I'm having reservations and you keep pushing and you keep pushing and you keep pushing. Sometimes that's just pressure. That's no advice anymore.
No, absolutely not.
So
Yeah.
that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So has what do you think about the effect of mobile devices and probably social media when it comes to increasing or decreasing peer pressure, especially among the youth?
Wow, that's a very great question. I'm telling you, the mobile device has put a lot of pressure on this generation, even more than what we can think of. You know what I mean? There's so many applications on their phone now. I'll give you an example. I used to know this young lady a couple of years back. Every time she posts a picture on social media, she's gonna sit there pretty much almost all day to see how many people like the picture.
Wow.
If she's not satisfied with the numbers of the like, she start feeling bad about herself.
Mm.
You understand what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you put this so much pressure on yourself. So anytime I see her down and complaining about, oh man, uh, um, a lot of people didn't like my picture this time around, or I was like, how much are you getting paid
Mhm.
for this? Things like that. I try to redirect a mind that these are just things that it will never bring any value to your life. Like they like your picture today, they don't like it tomorrow. Really, absolutely irrelevant. You know what I mean? And most of the youths, they are so exposed to all these things. Like this device has turned to like a small god to this generation. You know what I mean? Like everything they see on social media, that's what they want to practice. Everything like so called their how will I say their mentor on social media, what they do, whether it's bad or for an example, remember the laundry I mean the detergent
Tide
this
pods. When
yeah
people were
typhoid
swallowing
yeah
tide pods.
yes matter of fact I was on military duty then. I think that was around December 2 years or 3 years ago. I was on military duty. I was in New Jersey. I saw the news. Like these teenagers, they were like, busting these old typo things in their mouth. Maybe about few people died. Like all these things, like social media. So that's why, as a parent, I'm gonna be involved in my son's life. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
there needs to be like a balance and check. It's not everything they see out there, especially on the internet, is good for them. So yeah, basically this whole mobile device internet has actually increased the peer pressure among the youth. Absolutely.
And it goes back to what we are saying about the need to belong. Like a lot of people, a lot of the teenagers who, like the tide pod incident,
Mhm.
um, probably just to say because everybody else was posting about it so that you can say you belong or try to.
You belong, yeah, exactly.
Or
Like
whenever they do these challenges, the whatever challenge, the cold water challenge or so on. I know most of them I've never really figured out how they start, but I hear it's
mhm,
supposed to be for charity. But then you see people like during the winter,
mhm.
I'm not even sure what challenge it was, but there were people diving onto frozen swimming pools, and
Yeah.
somebody cracked a rib, busted his
Mhm.
knee, twisted his ankle. And I said, thank God you didn't shatter your skull, but
Yeah.
I don't care how great the charity is. I don't
Yeah.
understand why. Well, we're talking about it now, but um, when something is bad for you,
Mhm.
how how it still baffles me, I guess,
Mhm.
when we allow ourselves to be pressured into doing something that is bad for us. I mean,
Say like I said, most of this youth with this whole social media thing is they want to know how many views they got from it. You know what I mean? How many likes, how many comment, how many people retweet, repost, their events, without looking at the long run that hey, this act that I'm about to do can actually claim my life. This act can change my destiny for good, this thing can impact my parents in a negative way. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Not thinking about all these things. They're not really thinking about it. That's why, to me, I look at it like, you know, social media, internet is now like the new culture.
Mhm.
Is the new culture for the youth. That's everything they learn. they learn it online, and that's why as parents, you know, we or as we have a younger ones, brothers, sisters, they're still, at their peak, youths, adolescent. We need to talk to them more. You need to encourage them more. Like this thing is not taking your places. This thing is just for the time and this all or is going viral. It might not even last in the next 3 6 months. So after that, what next? You need to redirect, their energy to something more valuable for their life. Let them see that this thing is just for the time being, just for the short period of time, and it's not adding any value to you. So that's the way, I see it when it comes to um, internet and mobile device.
And something else you can do, like you just mentioned, talking to teenagers and trying
Hmm.
to get them to understand whatever effects of whatever you post on social media is not long lived.
Hmm.
I think it should probably start younger than that,
Yeah.
because a trend I've noticed, at least in church,
Hmm.
I've seen 1 to 2 year olds with cell phones on all sorts of sites.
Hmm.
I'm not saying they understand where they're going,
And yeah.
but if you raise a child to depend on whatever is out there on the internet,
Hmm.
instead of, you know, start with human to human interaction, not
Yeah.
saying there isn't pressure with humans,
Hmm.
but at least if your child has a friend when they are young who's pressuring them into something, it's
Yeah.
easier enough to catch than on some
Then yeah.
obscure website somewhere you don't even know they visited. You
Exactly.
know,
Yeah.
so it should probably start younger than that. Some I've heard parents say they use cell phones as their babysitter. They don't It keeps the child engaged. They're not crying. They're not
Mhm.
disturbing.
They're
But
trying
the
to give.
downfall,
Hmm.
yeah, the downfall of that is, because you're so happy they're not crying or disturbing. You don't know where they're going and what they are feeding on and what is influencing them and what
Yeah.
kind of social group they're engaging in on the internet, and how
Internet.
it's going to,
Absolutely.
what they're being pressured into. So,
Hmm.
like for example, your son now, he should be what, about two,
It's almost 2 years in
almost
August.
two. So, would
Mhm.
you get him a cell phone or allow him play around on his cell phone?
Absolutely not. Right now, see, he already developed the habit of like when I'm on the phone, he wants to like take the phone from me and speak to whoever I'm speaking to, which I understand. He's just curious that
Curiosity, yeah.
it's like I'm a role model, so anything I'm doing is he wants to do it. But I'm trying to make him understand that this is not the time. You can There's nothing you want to do with a cell phone right now. This is my phone, and I'm not giving it to you. Sometimes he's gonna cry about it. But it's a learning process. You know what I mean? So I'm not like giving him like free hand and just let him have everything he wants to have. No, with love, I'm trying to redirect his energy. Once he start dragging my phone, I'll probably pick one of his toys that I know that he really likes, give it to him, or maybe I'll just say, you know what, whoever I'm speaking to on the phone, I'll call you back. Pick a toy and play with him. You know what I mean? Just to change the behavior at that moment. That hey, this is what I want, and I want it now. No,
Mhm.
so that's the way. And that reminds me when you said something about like a 1 year old or 2 year old. Me, a
Mm,
friend of mine, we're having a conversation like 2 days ago. His daughter started asking some questions about reproduction.
mm,
That stuff really baffles him. A 5 year old girl already, asking questions. And thank God though, his wife is willing to like educate her in a little way to our own understanding.
yeah.
But my friend is not feeling comfortable. But I was like, friend, you need to allow your wife to train her.
Mm,
This young girl, she's curious about this thing. If you don't educate her now, consciously or in her subconscious mind, she's gonna find out what it is. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And you have a daughter that at least willing to ask your question now. If you keep pushing her away, maybe in the next 3, 4, 5 years when she's like 10, she has a better understanding. She's gonna start hiding things from you.
Or she
And
will
that's
learn from somebody outside the house.
exactly. And she's gonna start hiding things from you. But if you give her, open arms right now and accept our question, it might not be comfortable for you, But God will give you wisdom to answer those questions and to be able to understand the way she reasons and think. And you can help her in the long run, to be a better, a good child, in the way of the Lord, as as a father and a mother. So that's my
Yeah.
advice for
I mean,
when we had a conversation
you
two
raise
days
a
ago.
you raise a really good point.
Hmm.
Even when it comes to being pressured by friends, it's very
Hmm.
important if there are any parents or relatives or older siblings to create an environment where whoever the child, at whatever age the child is, they feel comfortable at least coming to talk
Yeah,
to you
exactly,
about
exactly.
what is going on. Like, um, I for both of my parents, regardless of the challenges I faced, even times when I felt myself being pressured to go in a direction I don't want to go to, I can tell them anything. Thank God they created an environment, especially my father. Because I know sometimes it can be difficult with fathers and daughters,
Mhm.
but I can't think of a topic I cannot raise with my dad. I can discuss anything with him. And my siblings too, my younger siblings, they
Mhm.
know they can tell me anything. They can sometimes there are things they're not comfortable discussing with our parents. However, they also know like there are some things above my pay grade. If there is something they tell me I know I can't help with, I would then go and I would let them know about tell my parents, okay, so this issue came up with this person and I don't know what to tell them. But it is very important that an environment is created at home where a child feels it's like what is that saying in baseball? Is he home plate or home base or something?
You said in baseball,
Yeah,
home run.
is he home run? Okay, I'm mixing up my sports metaphor. But
Okay.
but somewhere at home where home should be somewhere where not just youth, teenagers, children, anybody should feel safe enough to discuss. Okay, see the pressure I'm facing.
Absolutely,
How do I navigate this? Okay.
absolutely.
So when you faced pressure when you were younger, when you were a teenager, when you were a youth, how were you able to avoid the pitfalls of peer pressure? How were you able to resist?
Um, for me, it was kind of easy in the sense that when God has a plan for you, whether as a child, as an adult, it will always call your attention to it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like the story I told you earlier about the guys that tried to pressurize me to just to prove my loyalty that I wasn't a snitch or a spy.
Yeah.
I indulge in all those activities, and every time I indulge in it, we always get caught.
Mm.
You understand what I mean? We'll
Mhm.
get punishment, go and cut grass and stuff like that. So after about two, three, four times, these guys realize that every time this guy is with us, we always get caught. So to me, then I didn't understand then, as much as I was trying just to prove my loyalty to them. So at some point they started pushing me away, started staying away from me. Like this guy is bad luck, to their own understanding then. And along the line, I realize, as I grow older, I realize that I'm a child of light. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
anytime I try to indulge in any form of darkness, my light will overshadow that darkness. And it's like all these things we're trying to do in the dark, we're actually doing it in the open, and we always
Mm.
get cut. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So even as a young boy, then not necessary that I so much know the spiritual aspect of it, but I realized that as a young boy growing up, that anytime I try to do anything, maybe being pressured by a friend, in a negative way to do something, I will get cut. So naturally, I just don't do it. So God has really put that down on me to keep me grounded, if you know what I mean. So that really helps me a lot.
And then what about any person who doesn't have that? I know a lot of people who naturally that happens to them. Whatever they step out of their not comfort zone, but when they do something that is wrong,
Hmm.
always without fail they get
Hmm.
caught.
Hmm.
But there are some people who probably haven't experienced that. So for those people, how do they navigate if they are being peer pressure, if they are being pressured into doing something they know they shouldn't do? How do they navigate that?
Yeah, that's a good question. To me, I'll let anyone feeling, that kind of pressure think about it. That like my dad used to tell me something when I was a little boy. He knows me that when it comes to like bullies, I was tiny, really skinny growing up. So most of those bigger guys, they think they can just run through me. And my dad knows that this tiny little boy you're looking is really tough. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I always defend myself. So everybody knows that about me, even in my neighborhood, in school. Even if you're gonna beat me up, I'm still gonna fight back. You're not just gonna run through me. You know what I mean? I'm still
Right.
gonna give you that fight. So he told me something growing up that if you find yourself in a situation or you indulge in something that you can't defend yourself. For an example, if I'm being pressured to go and take something that is not mine and I get cut and people start beating me up, at that moment I know that I've done something wrong. I won't be able to defend myself. And my dad knows that naturally that's not the kind of person I am. I always want to fight back.
Right.
So that has, kept me, to fight for myself and not to put myself in a situation where I won't be able to defend myself, or even if I can fight back, I won't be able to speak for myself. So I would advise any youth, teenager, anyone out there, whoever, it doesn't matter the age, you've been pressured to do something. Look at it in a long way. That what if this stuff that I'm about to do backfires? Because there's nothing that you do. It's just a matter of time. It's gonna catch up with you. Whatever you reap, you sow. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Maybe it might take time. Depending on the grace, God gives people a lot of grace to repent from whatever. So I would advise, I have a time to think that this set of people I'm trying to please. What if everything comes out to light? Will they stand for me? Will they be able to defend me and things like that? So that's just my advice. That you have to be careful. You need to you need to think things deep. And thank God for the society we have in here in the United States. Like if you get caught doing something wrong, that's gonna be on your record. So that you should always have that at the back of your mind. That if this negative report on on my record, is it going to affect me in the long run, my future, my family? Is it going to change you know the cost, if you understand what I mean? So
So
yeah,
essentially, think before you act.
absolutely, absolutely, because this so-called friends, they don't wish you well. It's as simple as that. Anybody that tries to push you to do something that at the end of the day, if you get caught, or it can affect your future, those are not friends. Those are people that you need to stay away from. So
That's
that's
that's that's very important
yeah.
to remember if you are being pressured either by friends or family or relatives or work colleagues or whoever.
Hmm.
You want to seriously think if you get into trouble, are these same people who are pushing you going to be there for you? And that kind of conversation requires honesty with yourself. Because if you think about it on a surface level, it's easy to say,
Hmm.
"Oh yeah, they're my friends; they'll be there."
Hmm.
But if we are really honest with ourselves and really take inventory of the people around us, there are some people
Hmm.
you look around and you realize once trouble comes, first of all, some of them they don't even pay when you go out to eat. They are
Hmm.
never with their wallets.
Hmm.
Somehow they've forgotten. They always forget their wallet, or they're always in some trouble. They cannot afford to treat you. They cannot afford to be nice to you. They're
Hmm.
always receiving from you, and they have nothing to give.
Giving anything
So
back.
how much more when there is trouble? And
Yeah.
are they going to be there to bail you out, and or will they just stay from afar? Say, "Oh, I'm wishing you well and I'm praying for you." You know. So that's definitely something important to keep in mind. Now,
Yeah.
what about? I know we've probably mentioned it before, but for parents who really believe that peer pressure is not a thing, that there is no possible way their child could ever be pressured by anybody outside, they just don't believe that it is a thing. What do you have to say or do you have anything to say to parents who believe something like that?
My advice to parents is this: before you can, jump into that conclusion that there's nothing called peer pressure, or your child cannot be pressurized to do something, you know, out of their will, to say. What I call something, what do I call it? I call it like a friend zone
Mhm.
between parents and their children. Because if you don't know your child or your son, your daughter, your children, because they can be acting at home and be someone else outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't create that atmosphere for them to be themselves at home, you can't really say that there's no peer pressure, because at the end of the day, they will put up the character you want to see when they are around you. You understand what I mean?
Right.
Because you've created that atmosphere that I'm your father, I'm your mother, this is the way it's meant to be, and you know what I mean? And they
Yeah.
play along with you. But they've been pressurized to do some negative things outside.
Mm.
You get what I mean? Like, so my advice to parents is this: you need to create that friend zone. You need to understand your child, the way they reason, what they are thinking. It's not just my basic responsibility for my child is shelter, food, clothing, school. They need this gadget, I buy for them. No, it's more than that, because most of the youth, they feel more comfortable outside. They feel that they can express themselves among their peers. Come to think about it, now if they have like peers, they are not going nowhere. They have
Mhm.
no plan for the future. Don't you think that that child is on the wrong path, regardless of whatever you're doing at home, because they're just acting at home? So my advice for parents is the word of God is really, really, really important. Someone like me, my father's so rest in peace. Growing up for us as a child, the way we see Christianity was just like a routine,
Mhm.
because probably I would say maybe my dad didn't know better then, because maybe that was the way he was raised or whatever.
Yeah.
It's more like accept Christ or die. That kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
Sunday, it's time for church. Everything is all like a military way. At night, if you want to pray, we pray morning and night. The way they wake you up, smack you if you, if you don't get up from your bed on time. Things like that. But as I look at all those things, for me then growing up, didn't really give me the environment that I wanted to be able to share how I feel and what I want, and the pressure I'm facing outside
Mhm.
with my parents, because of the kind of atmosphere that was in the house, if you understand what I mean. They never created that space for me to really express myself to them. It's all about, you know end time is coming if you don't do this. I didn't really understand then. But I just thank God, like I said earlier, if I try to do something wrong, I always get cut. So that has actually, got me out of the all those mess. But what my advice for parents is, you need to let them understand why Jesus Christ is so important to their life. His purpose for us, the reason why he came down, sacrifice himself. Now he's in heaven, still advocating for us. That's a genuine love. That's something that we need to teach them in the way of the Lord. You need to give them that room to express themselves. They will bring some conversation to you, like my friend was telling me 2 days ago about his 5-year-old daughter. You know,
Yes.
asking questions way above a pay grade. But it, they have to answer those questions. If they push that away, she's going to learn one way or the other. So I would advise parent, you really need to know your child. You need to give them that self confidence. That high esteem of themselves. by creating that friendship atmosphere. Look at it. I'm telling you, if you look at most kids, they are close to their parent. They can hardly go wrong. You understand what I mean? If you look at the statistic, they do better in school. They serve God better. They feel good about themselves because even when peer pressure comes, they know they can always fall back to their parents
Right.
for advice or for comfort. You see what I'm saying? So that's my advice for parents. You need to create that atmosphere, that environment for your teen, especially the teenagers, to express themselves, so that they won't bring one negative surprise. And I hope that won't be the case.
That is really good. Um, Essentially, for parents, older siblings, relatives, create an environment where you also help to build the self-esteem of the
Yeah,
child or the sibling, so that they don't fall into the trap of thinking they have to do
exactly.
something for others in order to
Yeah,
be accepted.
exactly.
Or oh, that is really good. Um, and I guess the same thing applies for parents who believe in peer pressure and are trying to figure out what to do for their youth. It's if the thinking is they're already teenagers, I always believe in it's never too late to start.
Mm-hmm.
You can start. It's not going to be as easy as it will be if they had
Yes,
started
absolutely.
when they were kids, but it's
Hmm.
never too late to start. So we've come to the end of the questions I have for today, but it is a tradition in my interviews to leave the last 5 minutes for my guests to say whatever it is they're led to say regarding our subject matter. So if you have any, I guess, rounding up words for us, the floor
Okay.
is yours.
Um, it's been great, having this conversation with you. And for people out there, anyone that has the opportunity to listen to this, my advice for you is you need to understand yourself, what you want for yourself. Maybe as a teenager, as a youth, young adult, as an adult, even some adult face peer pressure. You know, um, what do you really want for yourself? What is God's plan for you? Because I heard this about a story about this successful man here in the United States. People asking that, what is the secret to your wealth? He said he never take a step without asking God. If he wants to do anything, whether being advised by family, friends, colleagues, whatever, being pressurized to do something, he said if it takes God a year to respond to him, he's gonna wait on that project. He's gonna wait on that particular thing.
Mm,
He's not gonna make any move without hearing from God. So what I'm trying to say is, in essence, is we need to put God at the center of our life. Everything we do has to be according to His will for our life. And I'll quickly read this Bible verse um, real quick from Galatians 1:10. It's a very popular one. It says, "For do I now persuade men or God, or do I seek to please men? For if I still please men, I will not be a born servant of Christ." So we have to learn to please the Master because our existence is in His hands. He brought us to this world. He created us in this body for a purpose. So being pressurized by men or trying to please men is not the way. We need to find God's purpose for our life. And as we do so, I pray that God will see us through this journey of life. The pressure we face, and keep it in mind. You will not always get it right. I'm just it's just a fact. You will not always get it right, but there's Christ that you can always fall back on, and it will redirect you. It will help you out to make better decisions. Because sometimes I realize that some people, they will tell you that, oh, I've gone so far in the world, I don't think Christ is going to accept me back. Absolutely not. Say come as you are. Bring your troubles, and it will fix us right. So that is it for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to wrap up, peer pressure is real.
Mm,
If there is anybody in your life who's telling you it's not real, it is real.
it
And
is.
as we've discussed today, it stems often from what is happening on the inside.
Mhm.
It stems from how you view yourself. Just like you said, it is important to know who you are. It is important. The most important opinion about who you are comes from God and then yourself. Every other person is inconsequential. It doesn't matter.
Yes,
So you need to
absolutely.
know who God says you are. I have a free ebook on my website. Probably by the time this episode goes up, I'll pin it on my Facebook page and have the link available on the episode page as well. It's a starter kit, if you will, a
Mhm.
collection of Bible verses on who God says we are, and then you can use that as a start and then go hunt in the Bible for who God says you are. But when you fed yourself on who God says you are and you repeat it and you repeat it, you might not believe it, you might not remember it all the time, but that is why the Bible is there. You can always go and reference it. But with time, it builds you up and it makes it really difficult for other people to pressure you you know,
That's
out
right.
of out of who you are. For example, where God says you are beautiful and you are precious, nobody's going to tell you you have to dress this way to be
Otherwise,
beautiful, or you
absolutely.
have to
Yes.
you have to be beautiful to join our group, or to be beautiful you need to be this way, or do that. When you already know that the creator of heaven and earth has called it beautiful, well, not just when you know, when you believe it, then there's nobody else that can come and tell you otherwise. And just for those out there who will I say are more secure about themselves, do not scoff at people who have faced peer pressure or people who are facing it. Instead, help them out, and if you can't help, point them to resources that will help, because not everyone is built the same. Some people have, everybody has different mental and emotional stress. Everybody has lived a different experience, and you
Absolutely.
don't know what experience is feeding someone else. So don't pile onto the problem. Just help. If you cannot help, point to resources that will help. And for anybody out there who's facing peer pressure, you may not fit in right now, but you are not here. You may want a battalion of friends, but remember that quantity does not equal quality. It's better to
Absolutely.
find one good friend than to have a million friends and followers and a million likes. And there is they're just there for show. There is nobody for you to lean on.
It's
You're not
not
drawing strength from them. They're not
adding
enriching
any
your life
value.
in any way.
Not adding
You
any
know,
value.
right? So just don't for the sake of wanting to make friends, go out of the way to do something you're not supposed to do. The friend is
Yeah.
going to come later. The friends will come later.
That's
I went through it in university. I did not have a flock of friends, but just about 2 weeks ago, I was having a conversation with my mom, and I realized I don't even know if I'll say on one hand, I could count on one hand the number of people I would
nice.
really call friends I had in university. There were maybe like one or two, but looking back, they were really solid people I could rely on. When there was trouble, there were people who motivated and encouraged me. And like what we were saying earlier, when I was in trouble, they were there to help me out. There were
Mhm.
people. It was just two people, but they prayed for me. They encouraged me. They motivated me. Um, just they were good people. It took a while to find those two people, and I cannot help but think if I had gone out of my way to follow a bad crowd for the sake of having 50 friends, I would have missed two really important people.
Just two important people in your life.
So let's just keep that in mind, and I'll just close with a short word of prayer. Our God and our King, we thank you even for this episode. We pray, oh Lord, that you help us to always stand firm in the knowledge of who we are, who you've called us to be, what your purpose for us is. We are praying that you help us to reorganize those in our lives. Anybody who will pressure us negatively or send us off course, that you give us the strength, the Lord, even to exclude them or keep them at arm's length for us. We are praying for everybody who is listening, that you always surround them with good people that will motivate, that will uplift them, that will always draw them closer to you. We pray, Father, even for our guests. We ask that you keep him, you keep his home, you strengthen his hands. Let the work of his hands always be successful. Father,
Amen.
King of Glory, that his son will grow up to be a majestic young man who is not going to be pressured negatively from anybody. Father, help
Amen.
each and every one of us to continue to walk in the light of our purpose, always relying on you and always remembering who you've called us to be. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.